what's gamification? Well, there are many definitions out there that you can see for gamification. It is a very young discipline, and you might have heard the most common one, which is that gamification is the use of game elements in non-game context to achieve an objective. For us, the best one and the one that gets the most out of it is the one that Deterding et al. Are giving in their paper, From Game Design to Gamefulness, Defining Gamification. And that definition says that gamification is the use of design elements characteristic for games in non-game context. Alright, let's analyze those three parts of the definition. First of all, we say that is the use of design elements, which means that when we are talking about design, we are transforming one thing into another. And that's actually what designers are doing. With gamification, what we are doing is changing something into something that is more fun. We are changing something that didn't make sense in terms of motivation, and we are turning it into something that does make sense. The second part of the definition is that it is characteristic for games. And this is one of the most critical parts of gamification. Gamification comes from game design. We are taking the best of games and putting that into another context. So we are extracting the best thing that games have, which is that they totally have us hooked on them, and applying that to another context. And then the third part is, we already have talked about that, which is non-game context. It is what we just said. We take something that is the best out of games and we just put that to non-game context. Okay, let's see an example with Angry Birds to make this everything more clear. So, now you're going to see my terrible drawing abilities, but just figure it out that this is the red Angry Bird here. And what we are trying to do is that this is the game Angry Birds. Alright. So, obviously this is not the best drawing that you are seeing, but it's fine for now. Okay, so imagine the game Angry Birds. This is the whole game. And what we are doing now is taking one game element, which is going to be this beautiful golden egg here. The golden egg that the Angry Birds are loving. This is something that is called an Easter egg. It's one of the game design elements that we usually use in gamification. So remember that we have Angry Birds here, which is the game. Then we have the element that is characteristic for games. And what we are doing now is applying that game element to a non-game context, which in this case is going to be, for example, a treasure hunt at school. So imagine that at school you have to look for some kind of treasure in the class of history. So we are using this game element of here that comes from Angry Birds, and we are applying that to a non-game context. So that's actually what gamification is all about. And then we have to see, why the name? Because why are we calling gamification like that, and we are not calling it, for example, playification? Because that's actually what we are doing, right? Playing. Well, not exactly. We call it gamification for two reasons. First of all, we don't call it playification because there is a big difference in games and play. This comes from an author that is called Calois, and he was saying that play, which comes from paideia, means just free fun. We can call it like that. It's just you get a toy and you just go for that, go for the fun. And then we've got games, which come from the root ludus, which is basically including or containing the four elements that Jane McGonigal defines in her book Reality is Broken. Games usually have rules, they have goals, they have problem solving, and they are voluntary. And that's something that play doesn't have. So that's why we call it gamification instead of playification or any other kind of thing. And the second reason for that name is that gamification, as we said before, comes from games. It is extracting the best that games have and applying that to non-game context. So it is that we are taking the best of games, as we already said, which is motivation, and we are applying that to another context to make it more motivating. So that's what we call it gamification, because that's where it comes from. So, thanks for your attention, and see you in the next lesson.